Hey everyone, it's Ellis, and this is going to be the Pantheon Remake First Impressions video, and much like Mordekaiser, this is going to be one that I'm surprised and looking forward to seeing, and mostly I say that because Pantheon is a champion that I've played since I first joined League of Legends, much like Mordekaiser, and I'm curious to see what direction they're going to go because Pantheon is one of the simpler champions in the game, and interestingly enough, he actually had a bout of professional viability in the most recent of months, most notably with the Avengers bot lane inside of Pantheon Talia, as well as even being played mid lane and being almost played inside of the jungle, and it also had the stint in top lane with Aftershock Pantheon as using the sustain on the spears via the domination tree to remain relevant later on in the game via, what was it? The Hunter... Ravenous Hunter rune. So let's take a look at what's going on here. So I'm getting a Godfist Lee Sin vibe, but this Godfist Lee Sin vibe is actually on steroids. Now I'm going to be taking a look at both videos, but this is just, I guess, to get a general feel for how he is going to look now. That definitely looks like Godfist Pantheon or something. And I guess this is the new Dragon Slayer. This is all really cool. Oh, well, that's obviously the current splash. And I'm not sure what this is, but he looks very skinny. He looks like a kid here. This is like teenage Pantheon. This is like when he's 19 years old or something. Well, that's pretty cool. It gives me a Raiden vibe. Actually, it gives me a Thor vibe. This actually gives me a Thor and a Raiden vibe. Apparently, Cloud9 won Worlds, which is pretty I guess what they're trying to let us know is that Svenskeren is an excellent Baker. Okay. And then right here, this is a interesting skin. Absolute fantastic time travel. This is reminding me somewhat of like an Iron Man chroma. I don't really know. This is like maybe Ultron would be a better, well, I guess not. Ooh. This looks like an Egyptian kind of Anubis. Anubis is Egyptian, right? Hades type vibe. This definitely has a Hades type vibe to it. Or like Ares or something of that nature. You know what it actually really reminds me of? This right here. This reminds me of the Disturbed avatar. Do you guys know who I'm talking about? This actually reminds me of Disturbed. The avatar right here. This is exactly what this reminds me of. Same color skin, same color eyes, similar posture. This is actually all really, really cool. This gives me this kind of a vibe, which is really, really badass. This gives me a Suicide Squad type vibe, which obviously I think that's what this skin line is supposed to be doing. Oh. This is like if there was a DC supervillain that was into BDSM. Like, his idea of torturing people is putting them under a dominatrix of some kind. I actually forget what the male version of dominatrix is. Maybe it's a dominus or something? I'm not totally sure. That cape looks way too big. I mean, he looks really thick in this skin. This looks like what happens when your father passes away and you inherit the throne, and you went from being like a really elite soldier on the heavenly fields of whatever kingdom it was that you were defending, and then you just sort of let the pound cakes get to you. That's sort of what I'm getting at here. You know. Alright. That face reminds me of something. Oh, the helm in Magic the Gathering that I think came out in Dominaria. Reminds me of that. Alright, so overall, pretty cool. I think that this skin is obviously really cool, as well as the Hades Ares skin. I mean, I think that this skin just looks so cool. Alright, so now let's get into the other video.
Around the map, there's tapping Q at people and picking your spot to all in. The Spartan Warrior vibe.
But there were some things that just felt too generic to him. So we wanted to make him our Runeterra sort of one-man army rather than this faceless helmet guy.
Okay.
When we were updating Pantheon, we realized that there was a ton of things that a lot of players loved. And I think ideally, we always want to keep that kernel of why there are still players who love that champion. So we thought, how
wow,
can we
that's pretty cool.
Character and still bring
that looks like
higher standard.
Captain Marvel type thing.
Whenever we consider champion updates, we usually kind of are deciding whether or not to change a character or to move the character's story forward. With Pantheon, what we ended up doing is sort of summarizing all his lore that had existed, because we realized a lot of players really did like the character of Atreus as part.
So one of the things that is a little bit surprising right here is if you just showed me a splash art, I would actually think that this could be Pantheon too, which I guess I never really noticed or complained about this before, but I would have thought that maybe his helm or something would have had more defining character. Oh, maybe his cape is blue? Oh, his cape is blue and he seems to have a different badge, maybe. Maybe that's what it is.
Pantheon, and then using that as like the first 50% of his new bio. So old Pantheon started out as a man named Atreus, who was a very skilled fighter and wanted to ascend Mount Targon. In the process, became a vessel for the god of war, Pantheon.
This is actually very akin to, I believe, Akuma in Street Fighter's lore, but I'm not entirely sure.
With this update, the actual aspect of war died.
Well, it's really interesting here that they bring up aatrox inside of this update, because what they're trying to do is they're establishing the thematic reasons for why the champion maybe will conduct himself the way that it is. But what we know now is that one of the thematic things about aatrox was that he revived, and now he doesn't revive. So we can skip the lore portion, and let's just make sure that he's actually a good champion.
During a fight with Aatrox, and Atreus has now returned in command of his own body, but still is able to wield the aspect of war's godlike power.
Pantheon's new kit, art, and lore.
So I guess now we know why aatrox doesn't die and come back. It's because he beat Pantheon. Okay.
We wanted to make him feel like a skilled warrior.
So myself and Sunny, who's another artist here on the champion team, we went through a couple of ideas. One of them was where he had all these multiple spirit arms that would come out of him. There was also an idea where he had a bunch of like swords and spears and things stuck into.
This looked like if Master Yi and Jax actually used the fusion rings in Dragon Ball Z. And this probably is what Jax's face and reaction would be to having had it happened. And yeah, okay.
To a shield. And we were doing a lot of different things with the spear. We had all these floating bits going on, but as the project
fusion earrings
continued,
for people
it
that
seemed like he was a bit unapproachable, unfamiliar, too godlike. He didn't have the grit or the gravity that we wanted. Through Pantheon's development, concept art works with narrative and design. They all sort of fuel each other.
Is that supposed to be Aurelian Soul's hand?
David Slagle on the narrative side, he had this really great story with this battle with Aatrox. So we settled on the idea of him having a little bit of the battle damage, but still with some of the Targonian aspects of it. All this part here, like the shield, the helmet, spear, and the cape, those are all aspects of Pantheon. But then there's a big scar over his chest. We thought that adds a very mortal aspect to the design.
One thing we found out in development that...
The thing about the scar is that it means that he got hit, so not really impressed.
surprised me a little bit was how much attachment there is on the character as a spell-based character. Old Pantheon is a very simple kit. He throws spears, he has a point-and-click stun, and every game kind of played out the same. And what we were trying to do here was move him to, he's no longer like deterministically going to win in these ways that he was before.
If you actually just positioned this fight a little bit better, you'll notice that his mana is actually still pretty high. So we can just take a look right here. If he just played around this a little bit better, he would have been able to kill Akali without having to use his flash. So I can definitely see here why he lost the fight against aatrox.
Some of the new Pantheon ideas that I went through early were things like he throws a spear out, it sticks in the ground, he fights with a sword for a while. When he goes and picks up the spear, that's when he switches back. A bunch of stuff like that, but they drifted too far from like old Pantheon. It's really important to go in knowing what can be changed to make it look and feel awesome, and what can't be changed or you'll lose the gameplay that like attracted you in the first place.
That's really interesting. One of the things that really attracted me to aatrox in the first place was his ability to revive and just basically be this menace, but okay. Another thing that also attracted me to Mordekaiser was his ghost. I felt like it was one of his main defining characteristics. And now what we do is we go on a Harry Potter journey that doesn't really amount to very much because most champions can actually kill him, or they can actually use this ability to get out of it. So thematically, I'm not sure where we're going here.
And so a lot of the update was about doing things like how do we make his poke really reliable, and how do we make his all-in really good rather than guaranteed to work. So for New Pantheon's kit, we changed every spell, but tried to stay close to the spirit of what the character was about. So his ult is mostly the same. We call it Grand Starfall now. He comes in at an angle and comes streaking across the ground. There are, I think, some gameplay wins to that. I expect skilled Pantheon players to like hit more enemies with their Grand Starfalls than they did with old Pantheon's Grand Skyfall.
What's really fun about Pantheon is that like he's not only just this cosmic figure that has a lot of like magic to him, he's also the physical warrior, and I think making physical warriors in this game is actually pretty challenging.
He's using the physical spear shield, like he's now using magic power to fight.
So for him, we actually cause a lot of impacts on the ground. And by having these very grounded elements, it helps him from feeling too magical and too godly and too heavenly, when most importantly, like, he is just a very, very strong warrior.
I would say I'm nervous and excited about Pantheon going to players. Like, I'm very excited to see how players react to the stuff we kept, because it's much more important for an update like this to be like for the Pantheon player. A lot of the basic actions you're taking are going to be very similar to before. He's still a top laner or jungler.
So the thing about his abilities, I do agree with them that the new R looks really, really, really cool. The new R looks infinitely more interactive, fun, visually pleasing than the old R. I think that that's a fantastic change.
I'm very excited.
That radius on his cone that we just saw right there, that's actually really, really, really nice.
I'm very
I like
excited
how
to
they
see
did that. I don't know what that whole Yugi Moto Millennium Puzzle type thing is, but
to the stuff we kept, because
probably
it's much
figure
more
it out later.
For an update like this to be.
And then obviously they still have his stun, so
Like
it also we can see the stun duration at the top.
Player. A lot of the basic actions you're taking are going to be very similar to before. He's still a top laner or jungler primarily. You're still going to be trying to snowball.
That's
around
really
the map.
cool.
This
That's
is
really,
still
really
Pantheon,
cool.
but requires maybe a little more skill expression, and as a result, give the character that is like clearly powerful the tools to hit even higher moments.
I liked that it seemed like he still had Yumu's in one of those last fights.
And as a result, give
Right here,
the
right?
character that is
Yeah, he activates
like
Yumu's
clearly
Ghostblade.
powerful.
So it does seem like he still might want to build lethality, or might still want to build Black Cleaver and whatnot. And obviously they already did say that he's still going to be a jungler or a top laner, but they showed some clips in mid. I actually don't recall if he said he would be a mid
Snowball
laner
around the
too.
map. You're still a top laner or jungler primarily.
They did say primarily, so I guess that gives him options to potentially go into mid. I think that he looks a lot better. He looks a lot cooler. His visuals are all really nice, but obviously he still has all of his abilities. Sort of. I guess I'm just waiting now for the
Similar to before.
details on them.
He's still a top laner or jungler primarily.
That
still gonna be trying
looks
to
like it did
laner or
okay
jungler are gonna be
damage.
Very similar to before.
He is
He's
level
still a
4 and he has blue buff, so this probably means that he hasn't
top
recalled
laner or
yet.
jungler. are going to be very
Now,
similar to before.
The interesting thing about this is that when we watch this
gank, very
gank,
similar to before. He's still a top laner or jungler primarily.
doesn't seem to do
Still gonna be
super
trying to
insane
snowball around
damage.
the map.
So I'm
This
curious
is
what his
still
ratios are.
Pantheon,
That's obviously
but
a really nice
requires
little
maybe
gank.
a little more skill expression.
But overall, everything looks really cool. Everything looks really, really cool. He still does give me the Pantheon vibe. This is not the same kind of a magnitude, or it's not the same magnitude of a rework as the Akali, the Irelia, and all of them. These just seem like much, much, much crisper and visually pleasing updates to all of his abilities that maybe he's going to get some new ratios and whatnot. And obviously, I'm just waiting to see what his exact abilities are so that I can comment on those as well. I don't believe that they are currently out. I will check Reddit to actually see if maybe they are currently out, and I just don't know about it. So let me see if they are currently out. Does not seem so, at least not in the... Oh, wait, hold on, there is a new one that just maybe came out. Oh, there is actually. So, let's take a look at what this could make. Oh, no, this is actually not showing anything. His bio was updated, in-game client reveal, but does not seem like there's anything actually ready. So, even though the client and everything, yeah. All right, well, all of his skins look, I mean, this gives me the Thor vibe. This is Cloud9 Pantheon, so they come from the future. And then in addition to coming from the future, they also have an Avengers Pantheon skin. So Team Liquid and Cloud9 both win at some point. So make sure to book your tickets for Worlds 2072 and 2088 respectively. Suicide Squad Pantheon is still here. This just gives me like a human Cyrax type vibe to it. This is giving me like a Helm of the Host something type Thor vibe that I'm not entirely certain. But I mean, obviously his base skin looks super. This is everything that, the meme, you versus the guy she tells you not to worry about. That's exactly what this is with the Lee Sin skin. That's exactly what this is. So overall, I think that Pantheon looks a lot cooler. He looks a lot more fun, and I'm really glad that thematically they didn't seem to do anything super defining that they would end up regretting later. As long as he keeps his Grand Skyfall, I think that's pretty much all that you really need. Pantheon, outside of that, lore-wise, doesn't have the most impressive stuff. Now, I do like here how he does seem like he's with Militia. He seems like he's sort of one of them. So maybe we'll see this in an upcoming Marvel movie. Who actually knows? But yeah, overall, pretty interesting, and I'm looking forward to playing him.